We all hear these terms thrown around: cholesterol, triglycerides, um, usually whispered with a bit of concern when talking about our heart health. But what are they really? And why does managing them feel, I don't know, like navigating a scientific maze?
It's true, the language can seem dense, and the body's processes are, well, incredibly intricate. But really, at their core, we're talking about essential fats circulating in your blood. They're absolutely crucial for health.
Right.
But they can also cause pretty significant problems if they get out of balance.
Exactly. And that balance seems to be the key thing. Today, we're doing a deep dive into this world of blood lipids, specifically cholesterol and triglycerides, and their, well, absolutely critical link to the health of your heart.
Hmm.
And we're guided by quite a stack of sources today. We've got info from the American Heart Association, a deep scientific review from Silo, Mexico, looking at the biology and medical side, practical stuff on lifestyle like exercise from Cecilia Health,
That's a good one.
and a detailed breakdown on supplements like omega-3s from the NIH.
So our mission here is really to break down these complex terms, explain how your body normally handles them, what happens
Mhm.
when that system, goes wrong,
Right.
and most importantly, what strategies and the sources back these up, covering lifestyle, diet, exercise, supplements, even medication, and maybe surprisingly, the power of just being informed, education.
Mm.
What can actually help you keep these fats in check for a healthier heart?
Yeah, it's about getting you the crucial information you need to feel informed, maybe empowered, without feeling completely buried in all the scientific details.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. So let's meet the main players here. Cholesterol and triglycerides. Cholesterol often gets painted as the villain, right? But my understanding is it's actually essential.
That's absolutely right. It really has a dual nature. Our sources, they really highlight that cholesterol is vital for life. Your body actually produces most of what it needs. Organs, like the liver, are churning it out. Though, yes, you do get some from your diet too.
Okay, so the body makes it. What does it do with it then? Why is it so important?
Well, it plays some really fundamental biological roles. Cholesterol is a key part of our cell membranes, gives them structure, stability,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also the raw material, you could say, the precursor for essential things like steroid hormones, think estrogen, testosterone, and bile acids, which we need to digest fats, and even vitamin D.
Okay, so a necessary building block, a precursor for really important stuff. But how does it travel around? I mean, blood is mostly water and this is fat, right?
Exactly. That's where lipoproteins come in. You can think of them like transport carriers. They package up fats like cholesterol so they can move through the bloodstream.
Oh, okay.
And this is where we get those familiar terms, LDL and HDL.
The good and the bad ones, yeah. Let's talk about the bad one first, LDL. What makes it problematic?
So low-density lipoprotein, or LDL,
Hmm.
it kind of earns its nickname because, as our sources explain, it's the main transporter delivering cholesterol to your arteries.
To the arteries.
And that's where it can contribute to the buildup of these fatty deposits, plaque. That whole process is called atherosclerosis.
And that plaque buildup. That's where the real danger lies for heart health, isn't it?
Precisely. As that plaque grows, it narrows the arteries. It restricts vital blood flow. And that significantly increases the risk of serious cardiovascular events,
Mm,
things like heart attacks, strokes, even peripheral artery disease. It's basically cholesterol delivered to the wrong place, causing congestion.
got it. So LDL is the delivery truck taking cholesterol to the arteries, potentially causing trouble. What about HDL? What does the good guy do?
High-density lipoprotein, HDL, it's often called the good cholesterol because, well, healthy levels are linked to protection against heart attack and stroke. Its job is more like a cleanup crew.
A cleanup crew? How so?
It helps pick up excess cholesterol, particularly that LDL cholesterol, from the arteries and transports it back to the liver.
And the liver then processes it, gets rid of it.
Exactly. The liver is key to clearing cholesterol out. But, and this is important, one source points out that HDL only handles a fraction, maybe, like a third to a quarter of the cholesterol in your blood.
Oh, only that much.
Yeah. So while it definitely helps, keeping that LDL level in check is arguably more critical because HDL's capacity is limited.
Okay, that's a really important distinction. So we have cholesterol itself, transported by LDL, the delivery truck to trouble spots, and HDL, the limited cleanup crew. Where do triglycerides fit into this picture? Are they related?
Well, triglycerides are a different type of fat. They're actually the most common type of fat in your body. Their main role, energy storage.
Energy storage, like banking fuel.
Yes, precisely. When you eat more calories than you need right away, Your body converts that extra energy into triglycerides and stores them, usually in fat cells, for later use. It's like your body's energy reserve.
Makes sense. So they're necessary too.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Essential for energy metabolism. However, high levels of triglycerides are also a concern for heart health. This is especially true when they're combined with high LDL or maybe low HDL levels.
Ah, so it's the combination that's particularly risky.
Yes, high triglycerides are strongly linked to increased fatty deposits in artery walls, similar to cholesterol, raising that risk of heart attack and stroke. It's often the whole lipid picture, cholesterol and triglycerides, that really matters for your overall risk.
Okay, so the body uses these fats for essential functions, energy storage, but high levels, especially LDL and triglycerides, are linked to clogged arteries. How does the body normally try to manage all this to keep things in balance?
Well, the body has this really complex system aimed at maintaining what's called lipid homeostasis, basically, keeping things balanced. And the liver, it's absolutely central to this whole process.
To liver again?
Yeah, it's constantly juggling things, balancing its own production of cholesterol, how much is absorbed from your diet, how much it gets rid of, and how it packages everything into those lipoprotein carriers we talked about, LDL and HDL.
And you mentioned absorption from food happens in the intestine. How is that regulated? It doesn't just all get absorbed, right?
No, definitely not. It's not a simple open door. Dietary cholesterol is absorbed in the intestine, but the body has built-in mechanisms to regulate how much actually gets into your bloodstream. The courses mention specific protein transporters in the intestinal cells.
Like gatekeepers?
Sort of, like MPC-101, which helps bring cholesterol in, but also, importantly, others like ABCG5 and ABCG8, which can actually pump cholesterol back out into the gut to be eliminated. So your body has this kind of filtering system trying to limit absorbing too much excess.
Wow, a built-in filter system? That's amazing. But sometimes this careful balancing act gets disrupted. Things go wrong.
Unfortunately, yes. There are several reasons why the system might break down and lipid levels can rise too high, leading to problems.
And is it always just about diet and lifestyle, or are there other factors?
Oh, definitely not just lifestyle. Genetics plays a really significant role sometimes. There are conditions called primary hypercholesterolemias.
Yeah.
Probably the best known is familial hypercholesterolemia, or FH.
FH.
These are genetic conditions. Yeah. They're often caused by mutations, like errors, in genes that are crucial for processing cholesterol. Think the LDL receptor gene, which helps clear LDL from the blood, or the ApoB gene, or even PCSK9, which also affects how the liver clears LDL.
And these genetic issues, they can cause really high cholesterol levels, even from a young age.
Exactly. They often lead to very, very high LDL levels that, frankly, lifestyle changes alone just can't bring down enough. And this dramatically increases the risk of early heart disease because the body's fundamental control mechanism for clearing LDL is faulty from the start.
Okay, and when those lipid levels are chronically high, whether from genetics or other reasons, especially LDL, that's what really kickstarts the artery clogging process, the atherosclerosis we mentioned.
Elevated lipids, particularly LDL that gets chemically modified in the bloodstream, can injure the delicate lining of the arteries. That's called the endothelium.
Injury, so it's not just passive buildup.
No, it triggers an inflammatory response. The body tries to heal the injury, but the inflammation itself actually contributes to the problem. Immune cells rush in. They gobble up the excess fats, becoming these things called foam cells.
Foam cells.
Yeah, and these foam cells are basically the building blocks of the growing plaque inside the artery wall.
So it's really an inflammatory disease process, not just like simple plumbing getting clogged.
Precisely. That's
Yeah.
a key understanding. And this damage to the endothelium, this dysfunction, also means the blood vessels produce less nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide, what does that do?
It's a crucial molecule for keeping blood vessels relaxed and healthy, allowing good blood flow. So when you have less of it, the artery wall itself becomes less functional, stiffer.
Wow, okay. And while genetics is clearly a big factor for some, you're saying other things can definitely push the system off balance too, even without that strong genetic predisposition.
Absolutely. High lipid levels can also be secondary to other things. Lifestyle is huge, a sedentary life, a diet high in saturated and trans fats, but also other health conditions like diabetes or kidney disease or even certain medications can disrupt the body's lipid management and lead to unhealthy levels. It's interconnected.
So the body has this complex system. It can be overwhelmed by genetics, by lifestyle, leading to artery damage. But the good news is there are clear strategies the sources point to for getting things back in balance, right? What's considered the absolute foundation?
The foundation, universally agreed upon in our sources, is lifestyle modification. And this isn't just a suggestion, it's crucial. One source explicitly says medication doesn't replace it. Medication works with it as part of an integral plan.
Okay, so non-negotiable first step. Walk us through the key lifestyle changes. Diet first. What's the advice there?
Diet is huge. The sources recommend cutting back on saturated fat, aiming for less than 7% of your daily calories, and limiting dietary cholesterol, maybe under 200 milligrams a day. And really importantly, emphasizing foods rich in fiber, fruits, and vegetables.
Fiber. That helps the body get rid of cholesterol, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It binds to bile acids in your digestive tract.
Hmm.
This forces the liver to pull more cholesterol from your blood to make new bile acids, which effectively helps lower your overall cholesterol levels.
Ah, clever mechanism. Okay, that's diet. Now, exercise. You said this gets interesting. How does just moving your body impact these blood fats? It seems almost too simple.
It seems simple, but exercise is incredibly powerful. It works on multiple fronts. Regular physical activity helps increase your levels of that good HDL cholesterol.
Okay, raises the good stuff.
Right. And it can help reduce the bad LDL cholesterol, partly by improving how the liver processes those lipoproteins. And it has a really significant impact on triglycerides. Exercise is very, very effective at bringing high triglyceride levels down.
So it's not just burning calories while you're doing it, it actually improves the body's machinery for handling and clearing these fats long term.
Exactly. It improves your overall metabolic health. It helps the liver and muscles use fats more efficiently. Our sources mention various types of exercise are beneficial aerobic stuff like walking, swimming, cycling.
Yeah.
Strength training is important too, and even high-intensity interval training, HIIT.
Yeah.
The general recommendation is often around, say, 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week, plus throwing in some muscle strengthening activities.
Okay, that's tangible advice people can actually use. What other lifestyle factors are vital besides diet and exercise?
Maintaining a healthy weight is definitely important, as excess weight often negatively impacts lipid levels. Limiting alcohol intake is also generally recommended, and absolutely critical, stopping smoking. Smoking is profoundly harmful to blood vessels and worsens lipid profiles across the board.
Makes sense. Okay, beyond diet and exercise, people often ask about supplements. Our sources mentioned omega-3 fatty acids. What's the deal with them for managing lipids?
Omega-3s, you find them in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, that's the EPA and DHA type, and also some plant sources like flaxseed give you ALA. They are definitely relevant, particularly for triglycerides.
Ah, specifically triglycerides.
Yes, our sources confirm they have a proven benefit there. They effectively decrease triglyceride levels. That's their main established benefit when we talk about lipids.
Okay, good for triglycerides, but what about for cholesterol or just general heart health prevention?
That's where it gets more nuanced, and it's a really crucial distinction made by sources like the NIH and the American Heart Association. While eating fish, say 1 to 2 times a week, is strongly recommended as part of a heart-healthy diet for almost everyone.
Right, the dietary approach.
Omega-3 supplements, especially the higher dose prescription ones, are primarily recommended by the AHA for people who already have existing heart disease, and always under a doctor's supervision.
Not just for anyone worried about their risks.
Generally not recommended for widespread use in healthy individuals, or even those just considered high risk but without diagnosed heart disease. The evidence for preventing a first heart attack or stroke with supplements in those groups just isn't as clear.
That's a really important point, the difference between getting nutrients from food versus taking a pill.
It really is. And the NIH source also points out that the higher doses used therapeutically can have side effects. Things like an increased risk of bleeding, which is especially important if someone is already taking blood thinners.
Right.
So definitely talk to your doctor before starting any supplement, especially prescription strength omega-3s. They really function like medications in those doses.
Okay, so lifestyle changes are the foundation. Supplements like omega-3s have a specific, medically guided role, mainly for triglycerides. But sometimes, especially if genetics are involved or the levels are just really high, medication becomes necessary, right?
Exactly. Lifestyle is powerful, but sometimes it's just not enough to get people to their target lipid levels, especially with those genetic factors like FH we talked about. That's when medication becomes a necessary part of the plan, always alongside those lifestyle changes.
And the most common ones are statins.
Yes, statins are typically the first choice and are very effective.
How do they actually work to lower cholesterol?
Statins work primarily in the liver. They inhibit or block a key enzyme called HMG-CoAR. You can think of HMG-CoAR as like a critical manager in the liver's cholesterol production factory.
Okay.
By blocking this enzyme, Statins significantly reduce the amount of cholesterol your liver actually manufactures.
So they basically shut down the internal production line.
Effectively, yes.
Hmm.
They tackle the body's main source of cholesterol production. But there's another important medication option, too, called ezetimibe.
Is that a me? How does that one work? Is it also in the liver?
No, ezetimibe works differently. It acts in the intestine. Its job is to block the absorption of cholesterol from the food you eat, and also cholesterol that gets recycled via bile.
Ah, okay. So one stops the body making it in the liver, and the other stops the body absorbing it from the gut.
Precisely. And this is where the synergy comes in, which the sources really highlight as being very powerful. Combining a statin and ezetimibe is often much more effective than just using a higher dose of a statin alone.
Why is that? Just hitting it from two directions.
Exactly. You're tackling both major sources of cholesterol simultaneously, the internal synthesis in the liver, and the external absorption from the diet. They work better together.
So they're synergistic, like you said, more bang for the buck, essentially.
You got it. This combination therapy can achieve really significant LDL reduction, often getting patients to their goal levels more effectively, and sometimes even with fewer side effects than cranking up the dose of a single drug. It's a key strategy in modern cholesterol management, especially when you need to get those numbers down significantly.
That combination approach makes so much sense hitting it from both angles like that.
Mm.
Now, all these strategies we've talked about, the diet, the exercise, the medications, they require consistent effort, right? And often significant changes. One of our sources brings up a really fascinating point about sticking with it, about adherence, the role of education.
Yes, this is such a crucial piece and maybe often overlooked. A major barrier to people sticking with treatment plans, whether it's lifestyle or meds, is often a lack of understanding, not knowing their specific risk factors like their actual lipid numbers or why they need to manage them.
So if you don't get the why, it's harder to do the what.
Exactly. If you don't really grasp the threat or how the interventions actually work inside your body, your motivation is naturally going to be lower. It just feels like rules you have to follow.
So simply understanding the why and the how makes a tangible difference.
Absolutely. There was this study from Russia highlighted in our sources that provides really compelling evidence for this. They set up an educational program, not just for patients, but for their primary care doctors too, focusing specifically on understanding cardiovascular risk factors, including these unhealthy lipid levels, and how to manage them.
And what happened? What did they find when they educated people?
The results were quite dramatic and, importantly, objectively measurable. Among the patients who went through this educational program, they saw significant improvements in key health markers, things like lower blood pressure, a notable 7.3% reduction in total serum cholesterol, a really substantial 17.7% reduction in that bad LDL cholesterol,
Wow.
and actually a healthy 21.5% increase in the good HDL cholesterol. Plus, they saw improvements in weight and blood sugar control, too.
That's incredible, just from providing information in context.
Yeah, and it really speaks to the power of being informed.
Yeah.
The patients in that study also reported they were much better at adhering to their prescribed lifestyle changes and medications. Why? Because they understood the reason behind it all. It demonstrates that education really empowers you. It helps you become an active participant in your own health journey, not just a passive recipient of instructions. And that active participation translates directly into measurable, positive clinical outcomes. It's not just nice to know stuff, it works.
Okay, this deep dive has really shown us that while, yeah, it's complex, managing these blood fats is definitely actionable. We've gone from defining cholesterol and triglycerides, essential fats, but with LDL as the problematic delivery system, HDL as the limited cleanup crew, and triglycerides as energy stores that get risky when they're too high.
We've learned how your body, particularly the liver, has this intricate system, helped by intestinal regulation, trying to keep things balanced, and how that balance can be thrown off sometimes by genetics, leading to things like FH, or by lifestyle factors that kickstart that inflammatory process of atherosclerosis.
And the really good news is we have powerful tools backed by these sources. The absolute necessity of those foundational lifestyle changes, diet, and especially exercise, remembering how it directly improves your lipid profile.
Yeah, don't forget that exercise piece.
Definitely. Then there's the specific medically guided role for supplements like omega-3s, mainly targeting triglycerides. And the effectiveness of medications, particularly that synergistic 1-2 punch of combining statins and ezetimibe when lifestyle isn't quite enough.
And perhaps, for me, one of the most compelling takeaways is seeing how becoming informed makes a difference. That study showing that understanding your risk and the management strategies isn't just academic knowledge. It leads to real, measurable improvements in health markers, better adherence. It puts you in the driver's seat.
Absolutely. So, what does this all boil down to for you listening? It means managing these numbers isn't just about, decoding a lab report or avoiding scary medical terms. It's really about understanding your body's internal world and then leveraging every tool available.
Starting with daily habits.
Starting with your daily habits and proactive choices, always, of course, in partnership with your healthcare provider.
Yeah, it puts a lot of the power, maybe more than we realized, back in your hands.
It really does.